Welcome to the EchoCast. I am Bon Diesel. This is a podcast about The Division 2, its community, news, updates, drama. Who leaves Love Island next? Just kidding. If you're new, welcome. If you've been here before, super welcome. Let's get right on into it. Today, we will have a State of the Game recap, Episode 1 release chit-chat, Title Update 6, and Episode 2 speculation, listener questions, and some personal content and updates. If you'd like to support this podcast and my other content, check out patreon.com/theechocast. Thanks to Luis, Jimmy, Mike, November, Hassan, Tim, Jim, and Ozzy for being my patrons. I very much appreciate it. Thank you very much for your support and helping me continue to justify doing this thing. If you are a current or new Patreon patron, let me know your Twitch username and I will give you VIP status so you can watch the recording of this live if you wish, typically on Wednesday evenings Eastern time. As I'm doing right now, I'm looking at the camera. Hello. All right, State of the Game recap. Not much to go over here. Gonna be straight up. So today we had Hamish and Chris Gansler. This was episode 130, I believe, by the way. They said that there was going to be no maintenance on Thursday, but there might, ! Might be a maintenance on Friday to fix some bugs and some little things that people have noticed in Title Update 6. But there's no guarantee of that yet. They seemed very unwilling to confirm or verify that at this time. They talked about cosmetics a bit and acknowledged that not everyone loves them. I'll give my thoughts on that in a moment. But they're what we have, and go for them if you want. If you don't, then don't. Up to you. They did talk about the length of the expedition or of the cosmetic event. And made sure people knew that for 3 weeks you can get keys, and then there's one more week where you can use keys and buy them, but you can't earn them anymore. It's basically a chance to use them before you lose them. And then they talked about, and they showed some pictures of the specialization weapons that now have skins. None of those are in the lootable or the caches that you can earn. You just have to buy them straight up if you want them. They did talk about a few of the issues found so far. I think they kind of acknowledged these aren't all of them, but I think these are the big ones. People are finding that the Defender drone is a bit OP and is essentially making people invulnerable. Crafting bench upgrade issues, both being able to upgrade it and being able to use it correctly. There was some stuff going on there. There's some issues with the Firefly mods. It's not showing the blueprint reward on like the projects and stuff like that, but you will get one on the control points and projects. Now you could run control points all day now until you got all of the mods, and then it would just stop giving you mods. But there's no arbitrary limit on where the mods can come from now. You can get them all from one source if you wish. And they mentioned a couple of issues with the zoo mission, so keep an eye out for that. It sounds like they have a intent to fix those soon. And then basically last is they talked about PvP again. They acknowledge that they know people are having a conversation about it, and that in the future they're going to have the people actually responsible for it, basically Red Storm, on the show and to talk about what they're working on. It sounds like there's definitely some stuff cooking, and I'll talk about that a little bit after the mid-roll. So fine state of the game, nothing crazy, nothing super interesting. I do think the quick response to some of the smaller bugs on Friday would be really nice, would be good, just to keep people relatively calm. I do think the cosmetics kind of suck. I don't like them. They're goofy. That's whatever, I guess. I don't know. I'm also one of the lame people who didn't like the clown mask in the first game, so I didn't like them kind of going a little dumb with some of the stuff. But what are you gonna do? That's what people want to buy. I get it. It's fine. I still really hope that at some point we just get some more like sleeker, more like Spec Ops kind of clothing and stuff like that. I logged on to Division 1 not too long ago just to record some footage for a video, and I couldn't help but notice that the characters in the first game are just so much more like sleek looking, I think. And I think it's a combination of a few things. I think in Division 2 the clothes are a little looser fitting on the character because of the summer stuff and all that. I kind of get that. You know, we don't have coats anymore like we did before, and you know, when you took the coat off, it made your character look a little bit sleeker. I also am under the impression that the character models in Division 2 are actually a little bit taller than the first game, aka they're completely brand new. Like, they didn't take the player models from the first game and put them in Division 2 and then add stuff to them. It's literally, as far as I know, I believe, I forget which event I was told that, but and that's also why there's been a few other issues. So keep that in mind when it comes to the clothing. I personally would like to see some more cool stuff, but you know, we'll get what we get. Some of the issues and stuff, I'm going to talk about Title Update 6, but I'm talking about that next, basically. For the state of the game, I mean, cool stuff. I'm still doing it weekly. I'm basically under the impression that that studio is currently massive in Malmo, is basically a ghost town. So I imagine that there's obviously stuff getting worked on, but you have to keep in mind too that I suspect a large number of the people who work on those things are off for a few weeks. And honestly, after they've been developing this game for the last 3 or 4 years, I think they probably deserve it. So I will white knight it for them and defend them. I'll roll on in and do my duty, as I've been told I have, I guess. No sarcasm at all. Okay, but that's it for State of the Game. Nothing too crazy. So for Division 2 and gaming news, I'm going to talk about the Episode 1 release and Call of Duty, actually. So, but Episode 1, so I'd like to, it seems like it's a fairly smooth release. There's definitely some issues. I feel like the reception has been pretty good, and it's kind of what I was predicting a little bit, where I think the expedition is a little bit underwhelming. Maybe even the new guns are a little bit underwhelming, but I think the update as a whole, with a combination of quality of life updates and bug fixes and some new content, I think it's overall a good patch. It's not a 1.4 patch. It's nothing that's gonna, it's not Forsaken, you know, Destiny 2 is Forsaken. It's just a nice solid patch that's introduced some good new content. Again, the new guns are okay, but the P416 is still the best gun. You know, it's just the lightweight M4 meta all over again. I'm dumb, so I don't know how they fix this. The simple solution in my dumb brain is that the higher RPM is, the lower the damage. The lower the RPM, the higher the damage, and you try to find some sweet spot where basically all the guns have a similar DPS, but you maybe give like the lower RPM ones some type of bonus over the high RPM ones, so that you're actually making a choice. Like right now, the last few weeks I've been running, I have an MTAR on my PvE, like damage to elite build, and my skill build. They're two different MTARs that have like the perfect talents for it, and I've been running it just to mix it up. I did the same thing in Division 1. I had a nice lightweight M4, but honestly I got kind of bored and just started using everything else. So I just don't like using the P416 all the time. I hate hearing the same gun sound all the time, so I've been mixing it up with MK16s and ACRs and, you know, a little bit of everything. So, but the new gun definitely hasn't changed that. The Carbine 7 has an okay fire rate, but has a pretty low damage roll. I want to say I've been seeing it like 4,000 or 5,000 under the P416, so it has a lower fire rate, I believe, so it doesn't make up for it. The Stoner LMG is okay. I really don't get the permanent suppressor mod on the muzzle. I just can't. I don't know why you would do that. Why? Yeah, I don't. Why take away choice? Like, and I hate the way it looks. I just don't. Again, not a game designer. I'm dumb. I don't know, like, why. But it's just a regular gun. I understand the exotics, so maybe that changes. Hopefully it changes. I would like to put my own mod on the barrel. Maybe add that mod that's on the barrel for all the guns. I don't know. But and I don't have the new Diamondback yet, and I don't think anyone should. I believe all 3 phases of the expedition have to release and be completed before you can get it, and that's a whole different conversation that I will have right now. The expedition. So I haven't actually played through the first investigation yet. I'm going to do that tomorrow on stream, but I did during the PTS, and I assume it's basically the same. It's cool. It's neat. There's some moderate at best difficulty puzzles in there. That's probably giving it too much credit, but they're neat. They're fun. There's also some secret stuff in there that's fun to grab and look up and find. Again, it's especially without the mastery system. It's 2 hours of content total. But what I think is the most what I think is in the most, I don't want to call it insulting, but it kind of feels like it, decision. They time gated it, so there's 3 investigations you do in the expedition, and they each take about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more. At least they did for me the first time, and they time gated it for 3 weeks. So right now, season pass people can play the first investigation. Next Tuesday, everyone gets access, and we'll get to do the first and second investigation. And then the following Tuesday, I think it's on Tuesday that these release, you'll get the third investigation and then get to go to the final part. If each of these were like an hour long or an hour and a half long or something, then I would kind of be a little bit more down. But for some reason, I feel like this is just like the most blatant attempt to just stretch content. It's real annoying, because I don't hate the expeditions. They're a little bit of a letdown for me. And if you gave people the ability to go through it and enjoy it all at release, I think you'd have that initial shot of like, oh, that's it. Well, I mean, that was pretty cool. But instead, it's gonna be, oh, I have to wait a week. Okay, I guess I'll do the next one. And then they come back next week and they do the second one. They're like, okay, I guess that's cool. And then the third one, I'll do the third one next week. And then they'll do the third one. And then I think there's going to be this emotion, and this is only my opinion, feel free to have your own. But I'm afraid there's going to be this emotion of, oh, that's it. Like, I feel like it's almost setting up this like this build up to nothing. Which I think is a huge bummer. But it's the way it's happening, so okay. I just don't. I think it would have better served the content. That I get the impression that even some people who worked on it aren't really, under the impression it's the best content that's ever been made for a game. I feel like it could have at least gotten a little bit more enjoyment if people could have just played it and not had this kind of artificial time gate. But I don't know. What do I know? But on a much more positive note, the skill changes are awesome. My previous skill build still is really good, and now I know exactly the talents and the stats I need to get to put on it to make it even better. I've had so much fun with my skill build the last couple days, so very good change. And last but not least, I think that these missions are it's really encouraging. The Camp David mission, it's called something else in the game, I can't remember off the top of my head, where you're hunting down Ellis. Really cool mission. I have some qualms with it, but I won't spoil anything. But very cool mission, very pretty mission. I mean, fighting in a basically heavy forested map with hills, and it looks really good. It's a really cool. It's just it reminds me of like older Ghost Recon games. It kind of just it had such a good feel. It felt very natural. The zoo mission is a bit long, but I think it's absolutely worth it. I really enjoyed it. The ending to it, for me personally, who really enjoys the story of this game, and in my own personal situation with having a child coming basically any time, was just a really cool ending, and not what I expected. There were a few things in that mission I didn't expect, that I thought were really cool. Again, I know not everyone has access to it yet, so I'll try not to spoil it too much. But zoo mission, excellent content. Really happy with it. But my biggest surprise of the entire episode 1 release is the classified missions. I know this is a sore subject with some because you have to have the season pass to play these at all. I will come right out and say that at least so far, unless you can find the season pass for sale, maybe, I still don't think it's necessarily worth your money unless you really want the early access. But I'll tell you what, I think there's supposed to be 8 classified missions in the first year of this game. If the next 4 are as good as these classified missions, I personally, if someone likes PvE in this game, would say it's probably worth it for the season pass to play them. This time there's a NSA bunker, which I would love to go into more detail on, but I won't, again, for the sake of spoilers. And there's a aquarium mission where you save some civilians that doesn't necessarily have any big twists or anything, but it's just a cool mission. The first 2 classified missions were okay, but they definitely didn't. They weren't this cool. I didn't enjoy them. They were fine. They were neat, and the little collectibles are great. But these 2 classified missions are some of the best content in the game, especially the NSA underground little mission thing. That's some of the most fun I've had playing this game so far, for me. So there's my episode 1 summary, kind of what I'm thinking about it. The expeditions aren't bad. They could have been a lot better, and it's just the time gating just really drives me nuts. But I'm glad that the rest of this, the rest of the update seems pretty darn good. So. And then in other gaming news, the new Call of Duty game that's coming out. They released a 4K trailer since the last podcast, and I get the Call of Duty memes. I get that people feel burned by that franchise over the years. I think a lot of people have good reason. I'll be totally honest. From Modern Warfare 2 or 3 until I want to say it was 3 until Black Ops 4 last year, I hadn't played a Call of Duty game. I didn't play Ghost, I didn't play Infinite Warfare, I didn't play whatever other ones were out. I just never messed with them. So I just had no interest. Black Ops 4, I got my money's worth. I played, I think, over 100 hours or so. Really enjoyed it, but it got kind of old. But this Call of Duty looks like Call of Duty 4 mixed with Rainbow Six. And I mean that in every good way possible. It looks gritty. It looks mean. It looks, the customization, they showed a gunsmithing thing that looked really, really cool. Reminded me of the old Future Soldier Ghost Recon game. But it looks like it might be like even more in depth. So that's good. They've mostly featured a new 2v2 mode where it's round based. So it's 2v2 permadeath. You die and you're done, and it counts the rounds kind of like Siege, and it just looks like it'll be a lot of fun to grab a battle buddy and go in and just wreck some people and get wrecked yourself. So I think there's a ton of room for some competitive play in that mode, and probably in the game in general. But I'm personally super excited for it. You don't have to be. But if you watch my stream, I highly suspect you'll be seeing some Call of Duty on it this fall. Probably with a baby sitting right here in the camera, her little head bobbling around because her neck muscles suck. Okay, well, gaming news. There we go. After this mid-roll, I'll talk about what I think title update 6 is going to be, what I think episode 2 might be. We'll answer some 3 listener questions, comment on a YouTube comment, and then do some content updates, personal updates. So, mid-roll time. Okay, so title update 6. So I think title update 6 is going to have 2 big features. I think we have a decent reason to believe one, and really both of these. I think that it's going to be our big loot / RNG kind of quality of life update. That was sort of kind of confirmed on a dev stream, but they didn't go into significant detail on it, but they did basically make it pretty clear that there's going to be some type of work, or that there's some focus on the loot and stuff like that. So basically it just seems like, you know, my finger on the pulse, basically people just want to feel more rewarded and making their time feel valued in what they're doing, and with the gear they get and things like that. It's interesting because what you'll find is that when there's gear locked behind a certain activity or mission, people don't like that, but they also don't like when gear can drop anywhere and everywhere and there's no specific place to get it. So it basically depends on whether gear is good or bad, on whether or not people are okay with how easy it is to find the exact gear they want. And what I think is worth mentioning is that I think that while it may just be a loot and RNG update, or at least a problem, I still think that we need some kind of focus on like talents and stats and stuff like that on gear. They're way ahead, in my opinion, in Division 2 of where they were with Division 1, where the high-end talents on gear in Division 1, they just, I mean, literally there was what, 1 or 2 that were useful. Some people would run on hexo builds, and other than that, that's why the Striker, Predmark, Nomad meta was so powerful towards the end of the game, the last year or so, because high-end gear was awful. It was borderline pointless to use. With the skill build, there were some places for things, and I know some people still ran some hexo builds, but for the most part, the talents on the gear in Division 1 and the high-end gear were just god awful. Where I feel like in Division 2 we're way ahead, where there's a lot more talents that are useful. Now, a part of that is that the gear sets are so awful, or maybe not as useful as people would like them to be, that it makes high-end gear much more attractive. But I still think even if the gear sets were more meta, I think people would still use the high-end gear a lot, because, you know, like each slot has a few different talents that are useful. And in Division 1, that was not a thing. In fact, like the knee pads in Division 1, like I don't think had a single like useful talent, or unless you consider, I think there was one that like extra XP and extra coins on headshots or something. Like it was just awful. So I think we're already ahead, but I don't think that their work is done there. I still think that there's gear talents and even some gear stats that can be worked on and balanced out. Oh, sorry, yawn. It's not perfect, but I'm really glad that we're ahead of where we were. And then the gear sets need some type of rework. I know Thylander had thrown out an idea, just a speculation of possibly doing 4-piece gear sets instead of 6. Then it would allow people to get the benefit of the whole gear set while still also having a couple high-end pieces with some of the talents that are actually really good. So I think the gear sets definitely need some kind of pass. So and the other part of title update 6 I think is pretty much guaranteed, and I don't think it doesn't feel like a secret or anything, is that there seems like there's going to be a PvP balance pass. They keep addressing it, they keep talking about that it's coming. Now that title update 6 is out, or title update 5. Did I say 6 earlier? If I said title update 6 before, ignore me. I did. I don't know. Title update something. Whatever the next one's gonna be. I I think the PvP is gonna get a big pass. I think for me personally, I played a decent amount of the PvP, especially in the betas. I played it quite a bit when the game first came out, and then it's definitely trailed off because I just don't think it's very good. I actually during some downtime last week, I went in to the DZ a little bit and played a little bit of Conflict, and that was pre title update 5. But the shotgun meta is definitely real, and the people who literally take no damage build, where I guess there's people with like 900,000 armor or some crap, it's not very good right now. So it's I think getting rid of some of those current metas need to happen. I really think that they just need to make more builds and more guns viable. It seems like, you know, there's always going to be some type of meta, but trying to make sure that there's no meta that's just so hands down better I think is a big deal. I've said it before, and I've caught a lot of heat for it, and that's fine. At this point, I'm just used to it because apparently everything I do makes people mad. I still think the SVD Deadeye meta back in Division 1 gave us this weird glimpse into probably something more like what the game was supposed to play like. Because during that time, people used cover and they used their skills. And by cover, I don't necessarily mean that they were in cover. I understand that being in cover is a death sentence in PvP for the most part. What I'm saying is that they would like use natural cover to move in and out of. And when there was someone with Deadeye and an SVD mowing down their team, they would get, you know, cover between them and the sniper. They would rush them. They'd toss grenades. They'd use skills to try to stun them and stuff. And then you'd get on them and melt them in a second because they were, you know, a glass cannon build. And so while I absolutely understand why Deadeye had to be nerfed, because two shots on someone's toes underneath a truck probably shouldn't be a kill, I also felt like that gave us a glimpse into the type of PvP that maybe this game was actually meant to have, or that it could have. And I would also argue, probably just as controversially, that even the Seeker Mine meta kind of gave us some of that weird feeling. You could tell it made people really uncomfortable because they hated the idea that someone could kill them by using a skill in a game that is primarily based on using skills. So while I understand that the one-shot Secret Mine was annoying, it got me plenty of times during the last stand days, it also kind of showed a direction this game was probably kind of meant to go when it comes to PvP. But there's so many, you know, Call of Duty 360 no-scopers, you know, that want to come into this game and want this game to be just like that it seems like people aren't willing to accept it. Even though, I don't know, that's probably not the best comparison, but you know what I mean. I suspect that they may add some new modes to Conflict and stuff, which I think would be cool if they add like a capture the flag or something like that. But the problem is that until Conflict in general, or just PvP in general, feels better, anything they add to Conflict other than balancing to the actual PvP, it might just end up being kind of lost on most people. I just they kind of need to get to a spot where everyone's like 75% happy with PvP before they try to do other stuff. They can't shoot to make any particular group happy in this game. I said it before and I'll say it again. I think you can break down the player base into like 5 different groups, right? And I think I said this in a video or somewhere. I can't remember, maybe Reddit or something. And the problem is I think that with PvP and maybe the whole game in general, you can make changes and cater this game to make like 3 of those 5 groups happy at any given time. But the problem is that I think it's impossible to make everyone happy, and it's possible to make everyone unhappy. So, you know, when I say that I think their goal should be to make this game like 75% perfect for everyone, all 5 of those groups. I think that's because that's the most realistic thing to do. And I think that would put us in a spot where, you know, I kind of compare that to Destiny 2. I know a lot of people play PvP in Destiny 2, but I've never really heard anyone say how amazing the PvP is in Destiny 2. So it seems like Destiny 2's PvP has found a sweet spot where it's a little unbalanced. It's maybe not the most competitive PvP on Earth, but it's fun to play. And I know that it forces people into PvP for some rewards and stuff, but it seems like people are happy to do it without acting like it's the best PvP that's on Earth. And I think that's where Division needs to shoot. Maybe there's some things that Destiny does that Division needs to do. I still think that comparing the games is nearly impossible, simply because of first person and because of how the movement works. But I still think there's probably some inspiration to be found there, even if it's only inspiration to please people for the most part, even if you don't please everyone. But we'll see. So that's my title update 6. I'm sure there's going to be other stuff. There might be new gear, new exotics, new other things, but I think the two big items that have to be in there are going to be some kind of big update to the loot and some big update, some pass to the PvP. Then the other little topic here I wanted to speculate on was episode 2. So a few of the things we know about episode 2 already. There's going to be a new mode at the Pentagon, and we know that there's a raid. There's a new raid. I don't know if it's called Foundry or if the pictures just showed that it's at a foundry, and I believe we're fighting the True Sons. So for the Pentagon, I know that there were some people who thought the expedition in the episode 1 was going to be some new underground, to the point of literal fit throwing on YouTube and Twitter that I saw from adults, quote unquote. I believe the actual some kind of spiritual successor-ish to the underground is actually going to be this Pentagon update. That's pretty much a complete guess. They haven't really given us any clue to what the Pentagon update is going to be. What I'm hoping for is some kind of lightly procedurally generated mode, UG-ish, underground-ish, that just gives us some kind of, even after you've kind of completed everything you need to do there, which I hope takes a while, I'm hoping that there's still some fun in going back. By the end of Division 1, my favorite thing to do was to log on, get 15, 20 people hanging out with me, jump down into the underground with my tactician build, which really didn't do much DPS, but was pretty strong, Seeker Mind and turret-wise, and run 3-phase underground on hard, not even on challenging, and just kill stuff. It was just fun. The time to kill felt great, and then when hunters spawned in, that was like the best part. Fighting 2 hunters with his tactician build that was a little underpowered. It was a pretty even fight. I died sometimes. It was just, that was the most fun I had. And while I don't expect Division 2 to provide a Underground 2.0 like copy and paste from the first game, I hope it never does. There's some people who I really think just want this game to be Division 1 with some shorts. And I'm glad it's not. And I hope it never is. Because it doesn't need to be. It's a new game. But some type of spiritual successor to Underground. Maybe eventually some type of spiritual successor to Survival. Probably not in this year, is my guess. Those things are fine. And if I had to pick one, it'd probably be the Underground, actually, just because of the amount of time I could spend in it. What I'm hoping more than anything, and I'm reasonably confident this won't be a thing, is that the Pentagon will not follow like an expedition pattern where it's, if the Pentagon, I swear, is 3 investigations ending with a loot room, then I'll keep playing the game, but I won't be happy about it. And I'm not under the impression that's going to be a thing. So I believe it's different studios working on all 3 of the episodes for this first year. It's kind of weird to think that now that they're through the first episode, it wouldn't surprise me if there's at least talk happening about the first episode of year 2. I imagine, depending on how ambitious that's going to be, that may even get started sooner than later, depending on who's going to be doing it. But I really hope the Pentagon is at least in some capacity some replayable content that, even if it's not the most amazing, groundbreaking content ever, that it's at least like fun to go replay the way that at least I thought the Underground was. And then the raid. So we have the raid number 2 coming, the Foundry. I'm really hoping that it's much more dependent on some like more diverse mechanics, and maybe even rewarding skill builds, and maybe even requiring some skill builds in some capacity. The first raid, I think most people can agree that it's basically just a giant DPS check. and that while it was interesting watching people figure the mechanics out, once they were figured out, it just turned into make sure you shoot this spot a lot. And I don't think anyone really, that's that's fine, but we can do better. So I hope this one kind of fulfills that. I think the location sounds really cool, and a big giant metal foundry. I assume we're gonna come up on the True Sons trying to make some type of super weapon or some kind of material or something that we just can't let them have. And the thing, I really hope that there's some unique archetypes in this foundry. I hope that maybe there's some some unique like heavies for the True Sons or something like that. Maybe even some new archetypes entirely. I personally think the Black Tusk are the easiest faction to fight. So that first raid being Black Tusk, I think that kind of obviously it still wasn't easy, but I think that we found it to be one of the easier, maybe a little bit easier because of the True Sons, or because of the Black Tusk. I think the True Sons for the second raid will be interesting. I don't find them overly hard to fight, but I still think that they'll be at least a more unique challenge than the first raid. What I'm really hoping for is that the next raid is going to be with the Outcast, because I believe the Outcast are like absolutely the toughest enemies in this game to fight. Maybe it's just me, maybe I'm dumb, maybe they're easy because their rusher has a bomb on his chest and their heavy uses melee weapons, but I don't know. I find them to be one of the toughest to fight, but maybe that's just me. And then beyond that, with episode 2, I'm assuming we're gonna get a couple more missions, some more classified missions, probably some more guns, more gear, more exotics, all of that other stuff we can kind of assume. I'm curious too if maybe this next episode will reveal what this bottom right cosmetic slot is. I did see some photos from the PTS that kind of revealed that it may be a pose that your character defaults to in photo mode. So while that would be really cool, that would also be a kind of a letdown. But that's fine. I don't know. I'll be curious about episode 2. We've got episode 1 now. I'm sure they're gonna let us ruminate in it for a couple weeks. And then I hope that they do get on talking about episode 2 fairly quickly, even if it's not coming for a few months. I think episode 1 is fine, but I think the sooner they start hyping up episode 2, especially if it provides as much more content as I think it's going to, probably the better, but we'll have to see. Okay, I've got 3 listener questions, a YouTube comment I wanted to comment on, and then some personal updates, and we're gonna wrap this baby up. So I've got my first question from Polidoro. I shortened some of these questions because y'all can't just ask a sentence. It's gotta be a dang paragraph every time. Basically asking what I think of the lower level clans getting better gear in the clan vendor. I really hate it. I don't know. I guess I'm biased because I have a clan that has like 45 plus people in it. But I think that while I don't think it should be pointless to be in a clan with only 4 or 5 people, I think that should have its worth. But I also think that there should be some type of advantage to being part of a larger clan. And even if there's no advantage, there should be no disadvantage. So the idea that there's this higher level gear, these gear with these god roll stats dropping on them, where you have to leave your clan and go to a lower clan to get it. Why? That doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't, because you're encouraging people to basically scam the clan system. That's so ridiculous. Just give it all like world tier. I don't know. Make all the clans have the same gear or something. I don't know. I hate it. I think that's so annoying. And that's one of for the most part, I think they've been pretty good about sticking to their guns with decisions made and stuff. But doing the silly stuff with the clans with like 3 people is definitely one of those like Reddit topics that got like way out of hand, and people be like, oh, I can't find friends. It's like, just there's like so many tools to find clans on there. If you only have 2 friends who play this game, all 3 of you go find a clan that has 3 openings. Like, I don't know I don't know, it fires me up a little bit. But I just hope they figure something out. I don't think people should have to be trying to scam the system to drop down to get a better piece of gear than what you can get if you're in a fully decked out clan. Doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't like it. I hope they figure something out. Morgan Amps asked, should crit range be abolished? Crit range is kind of an interesting thing. So a mechanic I really like in a different game is Battlefield 1 that had a sniper mechanic where you had like a one-shot kill window, and it was a certain distance. So there was a minimum distance and a maximum. So basically out in the range, there was this like 20-yard gap where if you hit someone with a shot in that gap, it did extra, like it did a one-shot kill. It killed them, I think, with body shots or obviously headshots. And there was some kind of UI stuff that helped you figure out whether or not you were shooting at someone in that range. I want to say that crit range was kind of an attempt at something like that. I don't know if there's a minimum for crit range, but I know there's definitely a maximum. So I think maybe it was some attempt to try to maybe keep SMGs in their role, to keep shotguns in their role. I have a feeling if it got abolished, no one would even know the difference, is my assumption. So if it was one less thing that we have to worry about putting mods on for, I'd be okay with that. Maybe there's something about that system I don't understand. Feel free to correct me on YouTube or Twitter or wherever, Reddit, because I'm sure you'll track me down there. Yeah, crit range going away, I'd be perfectly fine. And then Silent Rebel asked, would you be in favor of losing some RPG elements in the guns? So Silent Rebel went on to explain what they were saying here, and basically the example I could come up with was, or that they gave, was all ARs have the same damage but different recoil patterns. So whether or not you had a MTAR or a MK16, each bullet would do the exact same amount of damage, not counting your build. But the difference in the guns would be different recoil patterns and stuff like that. I want to say that's similar to a system that something like Counter-Strike kind of has and stuff like that. The problem is that I think with an idea like that specifically, is that like basically console players would find the gun that has the easiest to control recoil for console, and then PC players would find the same for PC, and then that would be the new meta. So I think that this question was kind of talking about how maybe they could figure out a way to balance out the meta and not have you know, the P416 being the only gun anyone uses. I think it's a good direction to head. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the answer, but I could be wrong. I'm real dumb, so I don't, you know, maybe a dev will hear that and be like, that's an incredible idea. I have no idea, but I suspect it's a little flawed, but I still think it's good that you're thinking about it. And then this time I actually have a YouTube comment I thought was interesting. So Sanjuro, on my TD1 versus TD2 video, they had an issue with me saying that that PvP in the two games is tied. And the reasoning I gave behind that was I believe that the Division 1 PvP was flawed from the start and was never good PvP, quote unquote. I still think people enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for some time until around 1.7. But it was, even when I enjoyed it, if someone said, oh, you're playing a lot of Division 1 PvP, is it good? Like, is that, if someone likes Counter-Strike or any other actually good PvP game, would they also like that? And I would say no, they won't. They'll hate it. You know, you have to want the Division PvP experience. There's a reason that you don't see anyone of note dropping their actually competitive PvP games to come play Division 1 or 2. But the reason I gave a tie for that was because I think that while the Division 2 PvP isn't great, I still think that a lot of changes they made in Division 2 PvP are going to lead to the potential for Division 2 PvP to be way better and to actually have some competitiveness to it and some kind of skill gap to it. I'm not saying it does now, it doesn't, but I think it will. So Sanjuro said that Division 2 PvP is trash, and that all of the top 10 TD1 PvP YouTubers not playing it is proof. I'm gonna be straight up. There's a couple Division 1 PvP people who are just good at PvP. You know who I'm talking about. Whether they play Siege or Counter-Strike or whatever they play, they're good at it. Apex, Fortnite, whatever. But a lot of them aren't good at the other games, from what I've noticed, from my observation. And so I'm gonna be straight up. That's not a group of people I'm super worried about. It seems like that there were ones who played Division 1 PvP because it was the most lucrative thing to do for them and their community. I don't think that you would catch any of them acting like it was actually good competitive PvP. This Sundro person was very upset in this video, and you know, we had an interesting back and forth, but I still stand by what I said in that video, so sorry. Okay, content personal updates here. So a little baby update. We are currently in the 37th week, which means we are full term, even though hopefully she's still got another couple weeks to bake in there. But she is positioned already, so anyone who's had kids, she's head down, she's facing the right way, but we had no signs of birth coming anytime soon, so it's not happening today as of recording, but by the time I record the next one, who knows, we'll see. I do plan on doing like a full-fledged video on the episode 1 DLC and doing kind of a more specific review of it. But I decided to wait until the expedition was complete after the 3rd week, which will more than likely definitely be my baby. Will probably be here by then. I kind of hope for my wife's sake. So we'll have to see about that. But I didn't want to review it quite yet. I want to spend more time in the new the Discovery raid. I want to complete the episode or the expedition, and I really hope that by then they've released the mastery system for the expedition. But I'm probably not going to wait for that because it should have been out when the game released or when the episode 1 released. I get it; it's not that simple. There's not a switch you just flip, but it should have been there. Because without it, it kind of makes the expedition useless in a lot of ways. So, is what it is. I will continue to try to focus on posting, you know, cool screenshots I've been taking and talking about good stuff and pointing out cool stuff people are doing. But if, you know, I'm not gonna just ignore the shittiness. People need to realize that, you know, if you call me a white knight, you know, and you sit on a throne of being toxic and, you know, kind of a little scam artist and being kind of a lame asshole and stuff like that, like, you know, I'm not even talking about one person, it's, you know, more than one person. It's not gonna make me go away. It's only gonna motivate me. So if you haven't noticed, I've been streaming more than ever the last couple weeks. And that's partly because I'm trying to get into a routine, and partly too because I'm just kind of trying to be stubborn. That's kind of who I am. So, you know, if people who I consider that have character and credibility start calling me out, I'll absolutely listen. I have before, and I will again if it happens. But as long as it's who I consider some of the you know, the dumpster fire of the community are the ones who have an issue with me and are gonna call me names and stuff like that, I honestly take it as a sign I'm doing something right. So if anything, it's only reinforcing me. So I do not expect that to change. You know, the whole white knight label and stuff like that, I'm actually kind of buying into it. There actually should be some new Twitch emotes here soon that you all can use. It's just, if being a white knight is being someone who's not just gonna constantly shit my pants and rub it on the windshield and so everyone can see, then okay, I'm down. White knight me up. That's what I have for this week. If you want to support the podcast or any of my other content, please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/theechocast. If you're on iTunes, please rate the podcast and leave a review. It helps me a ton. And if you're on any other podcast app that does ratings or reviews or whatever, please do it. I am Bon Diesel on Twitch and on Twitter. You can catch my streams, and you can check out my text vomit on there. And that's all I have. So until next time.